Starting your day off with a take on Vegas you won't get anywhere else.
Hi, I'm Holly Madison, and I listen to Brian Shapiro.
Hi, this is William Shatner, and I listen to Brian Shapiro.
Hey, this is Larry the Cable Guy, and I listen to Brian Shapiro. Why? Because I'm a good American. So is he. And if you don't listen to him, you need to pack up and leave this country.
This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
Come on, guys!
Oh, yeah. What's up, everybody? It is the Vegas Take. Happy Monday. Glad you could join us. Sharp and Shapiro back at you for another fun 2 hours of radio. As I like to call it, ADD radio. We switch topics a lot. We take a lot of phone calls. You won't find a more interactive show than the Vegas Take. So glad you could be here alongside Chris Wynn, who joins us every Monday. Chris, glad you can make it, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Had a fun weekend. I hope everybody had a safe and happy Easter weekend. Of course, a lot of festivities going down for the holiday.
Yes,
and, of
sir.
course, a lot going on here in Las Vegas, given, of course, we have NHL playoff hockey going on. There's a big fight this weekend as well, too. It wasn't in Vegas, but still an opportunity for sports fans to get out there and check things out.
You're talking about the Crawford fight and Amir Khan having we'll get into that. In hour number 2, one of my favorite guys, not only a world champion poker player and one of the best poker players around the last 20 years. Also, I would say a world-class knowledge when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. Super fan, Danny Negreanu will be joining us to talk about upcoming Game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs between the Vegas Golden Knights and the San Jose Sharks. Game 7 tomorrow in San Jose. What a crazy game it was yesterday. Yeah. We'll get to that coming up in hour number 2. Oh, yeah, we got a lot of news to get to, including this Florida police deputy that was placed on restrictive duty, and LeBron James talking about this, Steve Kerr calling it police brutality. We'll get to that in a second. Got to start off by talking about the horrible tragedy that took place in Sri Lanka. I was in Sri Lanka about 7 years ago, and I got to tell you, those people are great people. Mm-hmm. They're good-hearted people. They're very close, family-knit people, and they treat Americans great. And, on a Sunday, I can't imagine what it is like, what it would be like for those that even survived these horrible attacks. And like I said, close to 300 people lost their lives. Sitting in a church with your family, and next thing you know, either you lose your life or somebody very close to you loses their life. I mean, the images and the pictures and the videos are just horrific. It's horrible. ISIS has taken responsibility for it. I watched one of the videos and cringed, where you can see one of these bastards, one of these ISIS members with a backpack, looking like somebody at the Boston Marathon, walking around with a backpack on with bombs in the backpack. And it's eerie because about 20 seconds before this bastard decides to detonate in a church, he walks past a little child and he pats the child on the head, showing some compassion, knowing that 20 seconds later he was going to end his life and kill and murder hundreds in this church. And then I'm looking at video after this bombing, and it's just terrible. I mean, these people are just decapitated without even getting more graphic. It's just horrible. And we're talking about a terrorist attack where 6-7 of these bombs were detonated close to the same time across Sri Lanka. This was a well-orchestrated terrorist attack, and it's shocking to see these images, and you hope it never happens anywhere, of course, but certainly you don't want it to happen in your own backyard in this country. And it's shocking. The images are shocking. Everything is shocking about it. It's horrible, and I understand when Donald Trump and his administration like to say ISIS has been defeated, but let's just be honest, and I understand this was in Sri Lanka. ISIS is still going strong, and they proved that, unfortunately, over the weekend.
And unfortunately for us and for Americans, what is the first image that you go back to after you hear about what happened in Sri Lanka this weekend? You go back, of course, to the Boston Marathon and the bombing there. So this is obviously a horrific event that took place in an island nation that is far away from the United States, but still, given the state of not just our nation but of our globe, and the approach that we're taking towards religious extremists. Okay, let's call it that, because it's not just Muslims. There are other religious groups that resort to violence when it comes to disagreements that they have with other religions. It's very sobering, and it's very disheartening, to say the least.
You know what else?
And there's no question. I mean, it's a tragedy across the board, and everybody wants to quickly point the blame, or kind of circle back to what their beliefs are as far as where we are in the war on terror right? And whether or not it's something that is over with,
right,
or that it's going to be an ongoing fight. This very much proves, Brian, doesn't it, that we're still very much in the midst.
Oh, no doubt. But
you know what's
even I agree. But you know what's even more disheartening is the fact that we're hearing reports that the government of Sri Lanka, they knew that these attacks were coming. They didn't know exactly, obviously, where they were going to be, but it certainly doesn't seem they got the warnings, and it didn't certainly seem like they acted aggressively enough. In fact, one of these bombers was actually detained a few months ago.
Yeah,
for something else, and they, unfortunately, when all these bombings took place, it seemed like hours later, 23 people were detained. So the government knew exactly where these people were. Very disheartening. I think something else that's disheartening is, a lot of people that live in this country are not able to talk to their family members because they put a ban on all social media and any ways to chat over the internet with family members in fear that false information will be put out there. If that's their biggest, if that's what they're afraid of the most when it comes to this thing, then something is not right. Social media is not the big problem they have. They needed to act more aggressively, but let's just end it here by saying our thoughts and prayers go out to all the people who lost their lives, who were injured in those families. It is horrific. It is a tragedy, and, of course, America stands by all of you in Sri Lanka. They are good allies to the United States of America, and it is just a horrible, tragic event. Something else that I think many people are calling tragic. I want to switch topics on this. Did you hear about this story in Florida? It made national news, and LeBron James talking about it, tweeting about it, Steve Kerr tweeting about it, a lot of celebrities and professional athletes. Police deputy placed on restricted duty after cell phone video footage surfaced of two white officers slamming the head of a pepper-sprayed black teenager, 15-year-old, against the ground while placing him under arrest on Thursday. Now, I'm not going to read verbatim. I'm going to kind of give you the story here and the way I see it, Chris, then I'll get your opinion on this, and then I want to get some of our callers to comment on this as well. My understanding is that there was, based on what I read, there was a fight going on in front of a McDonald's in Florida.
Right.
And police were called to the scene. There's probably a couple hundred students, it appeared, that were out there that were watching this fight. So the police show up and they arrest the two students who were involved in the physical altercation. Okay, no issues there. But this, keep in mind, this is a very volatile situation. And I hate to say it like that, but it was. And so these two students are arrested. And police, and I've watched multiple videos, several different angles, and I do hear police officers say, stand back, get back, leave the area. I heard that several times in the video. Many of these students did not leave the area. Many of these students did not step back. And you had one particular student that was a friend, from my understanding, to one of the people that was being arrested for a fight. And one of those people that were arrested, their phone dropped out of their pocket as they were being arrested, which could happen.
Yes.
And this 15-year-old grabs the cell phone. And then the police officer says something to him, probably I'm going to assume along the lines of step back, something along that. And it appears as though the student gets into a defensive position. That's when the police officer takes out pepper spray.
Right.
And it doesn't end there. And this is where I think you could make the case for excessive force, police brutality, because this one officer slams this kid to the ground, punches him in the face, and the kid's got blood all over his face, so on and so forth. So, look.
You can see the video. The video's all over the social media. It's all over the web.
So here's my thoughts on this whole thing. Here are my thoughts on this whole issue. And I'll start with my opinion from square one. It does appear that at least one of those officers used excessive force. There was no need to punch this 15-year-old kid after he is already on the ground, and I do not believe he was posing a serious threat towards officers. Now, what we need to know is what did that young man say to the officer, but I'll get to that in a second. But it does appear that the one officer that is put on placed on restricted duty, who has turned in his gun and his badge, needs to be investigated. Now, with that being said, I'm going to take a stance that maybe you disagree with. I'm going to imagine you will, and maybe others will, and maybe they'll agree with me. Everyone's calling out racism in this, right? Everybody's saying, but nobody is talking about this 15-year-old. LeBron James tweeted out, so wrong, hurts to my soul to think that it could be one of my sons. Scary times, man. Steve Kerr said, what the hell is wrong with our country? This is insane, yet routine, so demoralizing. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and it gets me so angry. Regardless of whether this police officer used excessive force, and it does appear like he does, and hopefully it's a crime.
You can't say regardless of someone using excessive force. I don't understand.
Hold on. I'll explain.
Premise,
I will explain. It doesn't get to this point if these kids, and I hate to look, when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, when I was 15 years old and a police officer said something to me, I would listen to what that police officer told me to do. When police officers tell you to back off, when police officers tell you to do something, you do it, whether that's putting your hands in the air, whether that's leaving the scene. They are arresting 2 people, and they don't want people in their face. Now, this 15-year-old kid clearly did not comply. Am I saying he deserved to get his head bashed against the pavement? No. But what I am saying is many of these situations would not happen if people complied. And LeBron James says, could be one of my sons. Well, what are you teaching your son? Are you teaching your son not to comply with police officers? Are you teaching your son to get into a defensive stance when police officers clearly are in a difficult situation? When somebody tells you to do something and they're in law enforcement, you have to do it whether you think they're right or wrong. Whether that's putting your hands up, whether that's leaving the area. Clearly, these students and this particular student did not do that. That is a problem.
Well, you have a real issue right now with specific subcultures that believe that the police are the enemy. Look, and that seems to be kind of the case here.
Look, you guys are way overthinking this. And look, you're coming at it from a perspective, Brian, that I absolutely, completely disagree with. And no, by the way, it's not just me, okay? People have been on social media all day long, okay? And your perspective is this. You're coming at it from a view of defense of the police officers, okay? And I get it. And all of America, I think, out there gets it. Police officers, it is a hazardous line of work, okay? Day in and day out, they put their lives out there on the line to protect Americans and to protect people out there in the public. And that is something that all of us need to understand, and we do understand, okay? But then there's this thing that came into existence called the camera phone, okay? And now we have video. And we have, in real time, we see exactly what the circumstances are that take place in episodes like this, okay? And it's time to start exercising common sense. And
common sense is complying with police officers. That's common sense.
You're using one aspect. And like I just said,
that is the first aspect.
You're taking the perspective, Brian,
is the first aspect.
Defense of the police officers, okay?
That is the first aspect of this. You have to comply with police officers.
You got to let me kind of line this up, okay, and explain my perspective here. And a lot of people that are upset with what the police officers did. And, yes, the police officers
While you're explaining,
fired.
I'll let you finish. Let me just give out the number. Let me give out the number so we could just get and I'll let you finish.
You have to let me explain why I'm giving you this idea.
I will. Let me just give out the number, and we will have a conversation on this, and I will let Chris continue. 257-5396 if you want to be a part of this discussion. We're talking about the situation that took place in Florida. One police officer has been placed on restricted duty. Was it excessive force? Do you put any responsibility on this 15-year-old kid? The number to call again if you want to be a part of the discussion, 257-5396.
Okay, so you pointed out and saying, oh, yeah, one police officer, it looked like he used excessive force by punching the kid, okay? You mentioned later on in your description that he slammed the kid's head into the pavement,
yes, he did,
causing his head to get bloodied up
yes,
and wetted up. So, I mean, you just have to look at that with some common sense at that video and understand that it is obviously, there is no question there is excessive force used. Now, look, if the only justification, and this is the main word we're talking about here, Brian and JD, is justification for the police officers to use that type of force they use was if the teenager, the 15-year-old kid said to him, "I'm going to kill you," to the officer, or something along those lines.
We don't know what he said.
Well, but we saw the video.
We don't know what he said.
Yeah, Brian, we saw the video.
That's also not
There's
something that you want to say to police officers.
He wasn't.
You don't want to threaten their lives.
We don't know what he said.
But I'm saying, that hasn't been determined. Has it come out?
There you go.
The kid said,
it hasn't been determined.
Well, look. Okay, so
it's called an investigation.
So you think the kid said to the officer, "I'm going to kill you," and I'm about to pull out a weapon?
I don't know what he said.
That's my point. Is this? That is the only justification.
Hey, Chris,
what the police? Why would the police officer need to use that excessive force?
One thing you also have to consider is the size of the police officer compared to the size of the person.
The guy was like twice his size.
Okay.
Was the police officer not twice the size of the 15-year-old kid?
To me, that's
okay. Let me ask you. Let me straight. You saw the video, Brian. Did you see the video, JD? Okay, do you think the police officer was in any type of threat from the 15-year-old kid?
Let me respond to that. Let me respond to that.
I'm asking you a question.
Yes,
Can you answer it?
I'm going to answer it, absolutely. Based on what I see, when you have two white officers among all these other kids that are around in this area, it is a very high-stress, volatile situation.
Well,
I started this by saying I have no doubt that this one officer probably used excessive force. I started off by saying that, okay? But I'm also saying that it's also the responsibility. I don't care if you're 15 years old or 35 years old. The police officers were telling these kids to back off and leave the area. They did not obey these officers.
You saw the video. The one kid was already down and arrested. He was done. The one kid was done.
It doesn't
the
matter.
Other kid was standing there and just standing there.
It doesn't matter.
Basically the same type of thing as the kid with the Indian kid with the Indian guy up in.
Are you saying you're condoning these kids staying there? I'm not trying to make a case. I'm speaking a fact.
I'm not even addressing it because there was kids. Yes, there were kids wanting. There was kids.
When police officers say get out of the area, you get out of the area. You do what they tell you to do.
There was like 20 or 30 kids.
It doesn't matter. I don't care if there were 100 or 5. You get out of the area when police officers tell you to get out. You comply.
So there's any justification for the police officers to do whatever they want. They can do whatever they want.
I'm not
Why didn't the police officers pull out their guns and shoot all the kids that did?
Okay, now you're being ridiculous.
You're the one trying to make the case.
No, you're not listening to me. I said that.
So the force was fine then.
You're not listening to me. You're not listening to me.
Yes, I am.
Where did I say the force was fine?
You're the one that just asked me a question.
Where did I say the force was fine? Did I say that? I started off the show by saying it appears as though, I'll say it again because you're not listening. This one, hold on.
This is very, very spirited.
I listened to your.
I said that it appears as though this officer.
Justified.
No, I did not say that. Again, you're not listening. I said it appears as though at least this one officer did commit excessive force, and it could be considered police brutality, and I can understand if that is the case. I'm also saying that in many cases, people do not look at the facts. I'll tell you right now, Ferguson's a perfect example of that, Chris. That kid, Michael Brown, was at fault. All the evidence pointed to the fact that he was at fault, but we heard this hands up, don't shoot nonsense, which was BS.
You don't you don't put everything together, though.
I'm giving an example, okay? And this is where I will not defend Barack Obama, okay? He sent people in his administration to Michael Brown's funeral.
True.
Michael Brown was a piece of garbage, okay? And I don't care if he's 6 feet under the ground. You go attack a police officer, you get what's coming to you, my man. You get what's coming to you.
The word I use is justification, Brian. You're justifying.
Let's make a parallel between this and the high school kids that were interrupting the guys that were beating the drums in the park.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
it's the same.
If they were at fault there, then how are these kids not at fault here?
The kids weren't at fault. The kids weren't at fault. The kid's suing, right? Isn't the kid suing Media Mark because he feels he was unjustifiably crucified in the media?
Let's give the callers a chance. The phone lines are lined up. Okay. We're going to continue this conversation, but we love to hear from our callers.
Very spirited debate.
Let's take some calls. Let's start with number to call 257-5396. Again, 257-5396. Let's go to Kelly, who's leading off. Kelly, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to call about the Sri Lanka thing.
That's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first off, they're not ISIS. The FBI confirmed that they're an ISIS-inspired group, but they're not ISIS.
Okay.
I do agree. Yes, the Sri Lanka had prior notice about this whole thing. But the one thing that bothered me all day long, and I'm Jewish, but it was just the fact that they were none of the mainstream media outlets, okay, outside of Fox News, would say the word Christian. It was almost like it was, the worst word to say, is like Christians killed at church during Easter. They all use the term Easter worshipers.
Well, I'm not. I understand what you're saying, Kelly, but I'm not going to focus on stuff like that.
That is a new one. Easter worshiper is a new one.
I want to focus on the people who lost their lives, the families, and But I understand where you're going, Kelly. Can we switch topics? What do you think about this situation with what we're talking about in Florida? What do you make of this situation?
Well, I know it's rare, but I agree with you 100%. I mean, basically, these kids need to be taught, some respect for authority. And I would probably say 100% of these children or, these kids that get shot.
You guys are killing me. You really are. I mean, you're really killing Kelly, you guys are killing me. Like, okay, so
I don't think it's 100%.
How hard is it?
Let me use the word again, justified. You're saying it was justified for what he did as far as a 15-year-old kid, the police officer.
There would not be any reason for the word justified if all these kids do, if the cop says, hey,
if they complied,
let me, I need to talk to you for 1 second or whatever, and the kid's like, no problem, officer, here you go, here's my ID, this is why I'm here. Okay, go, you're on your way.
But a big problem right now is that specific parts of culture make it cool to not cooperate with police officers, and situations like this.
I don't necessarily
result because of it.
JD, I don't know if you're characterizing it the right way. It's not cool by any stretch of the imagination.
Hip-hop artists, rappers, a lot of people.
The African American community, and by the way, it's not just black people. It's black and brown people.
It's not just African American.
Feel like they are being persecuted by law enforcement. They feel like they are under the thumb and under the gun, and so that's what it is. It's not necessarily, oh yeah, this is cool if you disobey police officers.
But do I think that all cops or all police officers are fantastic? No, I think that there's a couple of guys who couldn't make it past JV football in high school,
perhaps,
who just want to control somebody. I think that exists, but it's not as prevalent as the media, especially the left-wing media, make it seem like it is.
But I did rock in high school football. You want to check tape?
we got to take some more calls. Let's go to Gary. Gary, thanks for calling into the Vegas Take. What's on your mind, Gary?
Hey, Brian, if you ever run for judge, I'm voting for you, man.
No, you don't want to do that. I'd find everybody guilty.
Yeah, you do, Gary.
All right, well, I want to talk about the fact that both of us are on that. I was on that list, the 10 worst jobs in America. And I made it because I drove a taxi cab. I saved a man's life, and I got fired for it.
That's certainly an ingest, but what does that have to do with what we're talking about? I'm confused.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay. All right. Gary, always good to hear from you.
I appreciate your honesty there.
We got to stay on topic. 257-5396 is the number to call again. 257-5396. Go to Rob. Rob, thanks for calling into the Vegas Take. What's on your mind?
How you doing today? Good to hear you.
Thank you, Rob. What's up?
Coming at it from both angles. Somebody said earlier, what's going on in our country where this kind of thing can happen? I agree.
Steve Kerr. Yeah, Steve Kerr said that.
What is going on in our country that a 15-year-old would challenge two cops?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who are presumably armed.
Did he challenge two cops? Is that how you're going to characterize what happened?
Chris?
Was he challenging him?
Chris?
He was standing there. He may have said something, but there was no threatening. He didn't take a threatening pose to the guy.
Okay, we get.
He didn't pull a knife out of his pocket. He didn't pull a gun out.
Chris, I get your point. I agree with Rob.
My
Here's
point's
why.
valid. That's why.
He went into a defensive position 2 feet away from the officer.
He stood there. Like the kid that was standing with the Native American guy in Washington, D.C. Was it the same thing?
How could you defend that behavior?
Right. Was it the same thing what he did with the Native American guy?
Well, let's let Rob.
I'm asking the question.
Let's let Rob continue.
Those were the black. But those were the black Hebrew Israelites. That was like an aggressive.
You understand the question?
I get it.
You know what I'm trying to get at,
guys. Let's let Rob continue. Go ahead, Rob.
That was fun to listen to. Thank you.
Yeah.
The point is this: if we all know, we've all been taught, if you're challenged by police officers, you know what? Comply. That's what we have attorneys for. I personally have won a lawsuit against a municipality police department because what they were doing was insane.
Yeah.
But you know, is it tragic that kid will always have that with him in his psyche that hey, maybe this is the way police officers always are? Yeah, that's too bad. But I can tell you, if it's me and I'm standing there and I got 200 people in a very spun up
dangerous situation.
Then, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm taking you.
I get it, Rob. Rob, I get it. Good to hear from you. And I take that opinion, and I sort of agree with him. Let's take another phone call. Let's go to Ron. Ron, thanks for calling into the Vegas Take. What do you think about this, Ron?
Good evening, Brian. Hey, I agree with you 100%. You know, our police officers they're our front line. You know, without them, this world would be the wild, wild west.
Yeah. I think
you know how it is out here in Nevada.
Sure.
Nevada, Las Vegas is the wild, wild west.
I think, Ron, what Chris is trying to say is, this kid didn't deserve it, but the point I'm trying to make is you have to comply with police officers, and this kid did not comply.
I understand, right?
And not only that, I have a huge issue with LeBron James kind of stirring up the fire.
Yeah, I don't like it. Pick your spot.
You guys know why that is. No, it's in social because the video's out there, so the celebrities are going to obviously chime in.
He's going to incite riots. He's going to incite responses, and it's not good for the United States of America.
I agree with Jason. I think you have to wait.
It's not good for the relationship between young kids and professional athletes. They're superstars. They're role models.
There are things he could have said that said this is an unfortunate circumstance. Let's wait, or at least make a comment after all the facts have been put out there. Ron, good to hear from you.
I don't understand, gentlemen. Look, it's how these kids are being raised. They have no fathers. You know what I mean? There's no father image left in a family anymore.
I think I don't think that's definitely the case in some situations.
I don't think it has anything to do with him being raised.
I think it's a lot more predicated on social media.
Let me tell you something. A kid will hide things from his mama that he can't hide from his daddy. You know why? because his daddy done it before him.
All right. Well, I'm not going to go that far.
Yeah,
I'm not going to.
A lot of generalization going on here. Okay, it was in the moment. The guy picked up a cell phone and he stood there. And as Brian says, in a defensive position, as if he was going to cock back and throw a punch. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
For the record,
is that what you're trying to say?
For the record, I hid condoms for my mom, not my dad. So I don't know what Ron is talking about. Anyway, let's take one more call before we go to break. Louis, thanks for calling into the Vegas Take. Or Lewis, I'm sorry. What's on your mind, Lewis? Lewis, are you there? What a shocker. Line 5 isn't working again today. Let's go to Cameron. Cameron, thank you for calling into the Vegas Take. What's up, Cameron? Do we have Cameron on? No. Is Cameron and Louie not on the line? Okay, that's fine. We'll take some more phone calls when we come back. Hang on the line. Hang on the line, Cameron and Louie. We'll try to figure out the phone situation, which never seems to work here. But the number to call if you want to be a part of the show, 257-5396. Again, the number to call, 702-257-5396. Of course, we're talking about this situation in Florida. LeBron James speaking out on it, plenty of other professional athletes as well. Chris's point is that, this is absolutely police brutality, and my point of view is it might be police brutality, but I believe it also is responsibility from the other person, and in case the teen in this situation, not complying with police officers. And I think too many people rush to judgment. Yes, it does appear that this could be police brutality, but I never hear African Americans, particularly the leaders out there, talking about how you should act in front of a police officer. We never hear that. And we got to go. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we will certainly take more of these discussions. Chris is giving me looks, so I'll give him a chance to respond to what I just said.
You're just making a blanket statement about African American leadership.
Yeah, it is.
So they're out there not. The majority they're not using their responsibility as far as like.
We got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll talk about this. The majority of officer-involved shootings happen because people do not comply with the police officers. Not in all, but most. We'll get to that when we come back. 257-5396. The Vegas Take coming back at you on the other side of the break. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Reminder, hour number 2, we're going to go over to the Vegas Golden Knights with Daniel Negreanu, superfan, World Series of Poker champion. It's a big game tomorrow, but obviously we're talking about a very serious issue, a situation that occurred in Florida where a deputy has been placed on restrictive duty, a 15-year-old bludgeoned, face put down to the pavement. Chris Wynn is kind of, stating the fact that, this is police brutality, not putting any responsibility on the 15-year-old. My point of view is that I believe that you have to comply with police officers. I think there are two people at fault here, and I think JD kind of is in the middle somewhere. Let's take some more phone calls. Let's go to Louie. Louie, thanks for going into the Vegas Take. What's on your mind?
How you doing today?
Doing good, Louie. Thanks for waiting on hold. What's up?
Listen, I agree with you, Ryan, today. Look, first and foremost, from my personal standpoint, police, no matter what, police, like teachers, get the benefit of the doubt, period, end of story.
Mm-hmm.
Was there excessive force? Probably.
Right.
However, I'm tired of all these perfect world people. Oh, he's 15. Have you ever seen some of these 13-year-old girls?
Mm-hmm. Well, to me, it's academic, Louis. Whether you're 15 or 35, you have to be able to comply with police officers.
And I agree there.
Yeah.
And in that situation, officers aren't thinking, "Oh, is this 15?"
Right.
The dude looked pretty big, and nowadays you don't know what people are going to do.
Well, let's let Chris respond to this.
I just have a question. I just have a question for you. You said that was there excessive force, and then you say probably, right? And then you say that you agree with Brian, which means that, and look, I'm not putting words in Brian's mouth, but Brian is taking the side of the police officer.
No, I'm not.
No, what
You're
are you doing? Well, Louis,
I'm taking the side of the police officer.
Listen, here's what I said.
I used the word before, the word justification.
You want me to repeat what I said again?
I heard exactly what you said. But when you say that because the kid did not comply with the officer, this is why the officer used excessive force, then you are justifying the action.
No, Chris, what he's saying.
There's a reason why we're here.
What he's saying is that
we all can't talk at the same time.
It's a cause and effect situation. The kid did this, the officer did this. The officer wouldn't have done this without that already taking place.
Let me give you a perfect example, Louis, if you agree. Hold on. Let me try to explain, okay? If a police officer late at night, dark, gets a phone call that an African-American or whoever might have a gun walking around in a neighborhood, and the police officer goes up to someone and says, "Get your hands in the air," and the kid turns around and puts both of his hands in his pocket, and the police officer again says, "Get your hands in the air," and the guy does not comply What do you think is going to happen in that situation if a police officer thinks that person has a gun?
That the police officer is going to take action.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay. So
you got to use it, but it's a specific situation. That's not what happened here. Okay.
Yeah.
That was not the circumstances that took place here, Brian.
The circumstances are these kids did not comply.
No, but the question is whether or not excessive force was used by the police officer.
You're not. Again, my head's going to explode. Hold on. I just said that the officer used excessive force most likely, and if he's charged, I'm not going to have a problem with that. But what I'm trying to tell you, Chris, and you're not listening to me, is that people need to comply.
You're using a reasoning why the officers did what they did, right? Are you not doing that when you're saying that because the kid did not comply,
that kid deserved to be pepper sprayed.
But
pepper spray was deserving.
But why would the officer use that excessive force on the kid?
Okay, I just said the kid deserved to be pepper sprayed. No doubt about it. And if they arrested him, I wouldn't have had a problem with that either. I think the excessive force is when you slam him on the ground,
punch him in the head.
That was wrong.
And then slam his face
that was probably
wrong.
Let's take some more calls at 257-5396. Go to George. George, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind, George?
Hey, George.
Hey, so I hear the two sides of the argument, and I feel like, if we split it up into 2 points, it'd be really easy, right? Should you comply with an officer's orders? Absolutely, of course, every time. Should the officer have reacted that way and used excessive force? I think most people would say no, but there needs to be an examination afterwards of going to the kid, having him speak with a counselor, ask him, why did he fear complying with the officer? And then with the officer, why was there so much anger and fear in a situation where I feel like if it had been a different ethnicity, maybe there wouldn't have been that fear.
I do not disagree. I do not disagree with that.
It wouldn't have gone to that kind of a situation.
I agree, but George, it doesn't help.
I just like the link of going from the excessive force and constantly going back to the he should have complied, because one does not justify the other. It just doesn't.
I didn't say it, but George, this would not have happened if those kids complied and they left.
But you have to go by the end game, Brian. You have to go by what was the end result.
I don't think that the
compliance,
the non-compliance should in any way say that that's what they get or that's what happens.
I didn't say that.
That's not how it should be.
I didn't say that, but what I am also trying to tell you is that when LeBron James and other athletes go on and just accuse police officers and put no responsibility on kids or adults that do not comply with police officers, that is wrong.
So that's a third point, and I'm kind of half on that third point as well, where it's like, okay, yeah, there should be some responsibility on it, but he also is trying to make the point that there's a different set of pressures and responsibilities for different groups of kids.
Yes, I understand, George, and that's a good call, and it's good to hear from you. I appreciate it.
And it brings me to a real quick point, guys, that's been pointed out on social media today all day long, right? And it was the arrest of the shooter down in Parkland, right? The way that arrests go down when it's a white person, right? And things are it's all usually standard by the book. There's usually when it's a white person in America and they get arrested
Hold
for
on
something.
a second.
Let me finish my point. Okay, usually when it's somebody that is a white person, and even if the person, whoever it may be erratic, their emotions may be out of control. There may even be threatening activity. You got to let me finish, Brian. No, it's not. Yet, because even if the person is erratic and maybe threatening towards police officers, somehow, some way, the arrest goes down and there's not this type of extracurricular activity or excess after the fact. Yet when there are minorities, okay, and we saw it, it's not like we don't have it. We have video evidence of what took place. When there are minorities, okay, and stuff like this takes place, and and in this case, it's evident. It's the end game, okay? What happened at the end? The whole reason we're even talking about this, right, is because of what happened in the process after he was pepper sprayed. And it wasn't just the one police officer, by the way. There were two police officers that took the guy down.
I understand.
That's why we're even discussing this, is because of what happened there with the excessive force.
Let's take some more phone calls because the phone lines are jammed. Let's go to Fidel at 257-5396. Fidel, thank you for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, brother, I am so glad that you picked my call right after what he just got through saying. I'm half black, half Mexican, and everything you just said about police and brutality against minorities is factually incorrect. You can look at FBI statistics, and I can give them all to you if you want to give me an email address after I hang up, but it's wrong.
Go ahead. Just
the
make
number
your
one
point.
thing is we are living in a post-King social media environment. After Rodney King was beaten on video and after Dr. King was assassinated, there is no black leadership. That vacuum of an absence of true leadership gives people like LeBron James who really is an imbecile, in my opinion, for these matters, he gives his voice power, which invigorates young black people into believing that they're victims and believing that it's systemically racist.
Fidel, can I ask you a quick question?
I would say that's completely
We all can't talk at the same time.
So what you said, when you say this, and I'm assuming you're Caucasian.
Absolutely.
What you're doing is you're giving black people and people of color an excuse for what goes on.
Absolutely not. Absolutely, positively not. And let me ask you a quick question.
Hold on. When you tell a person of color that the reason something happened to them is because of their skin color and not because of their conduct, I can change my conduct, but I can never change my skin color. So therefore, the system will always be against me.
Okay, let me ask you a quick question. Do you think you don't think there's any racial injustice when it comes to law enforcement in situations around this country? You don't. For example, let me ask you this. You brought up Rodney King. You brought up Rodney King, did you not? You brought up Rodney King. Do you think those officers were fine? They got off, but do you think the officers were not in the wrong with Rodney King? Are you on that side?
Time out.
Well, no, I'm asking you a question.
When you preface
it's a simple question,
let's make sure it's in context. I never said
we saw the video.
That there is no racism.
He never said that.
And that there are no incidents of police racism.
Fidel never said that.
What I'm saying is when you characterize police arrests of minorities as being different than white people, that gives the wrong narrative. It's untrue. So when you say that, are there?
I'm not saying all. Did I say all that works that way with all cases? No, I was simply pointing out these specific instances.
That might have been the best political call you've ever had.
Fidel,
great call, Fidel.
I think Fidel made some valid points there.
Statement about
I didn't say you did. Let's take another call. Let's go to Marge. Marge, thanks for calling into the Vegas Take. What's on your mind?
Hey, Marge.
Well, first of all, I think JD's got a really tough job tonight trying to referee between the two of you.
He does.
That's true. That's very true.
I think in this situation, I can see where the police officer. There are about 200 or so people that were milling around after a fight, from what I heard.
Well, you see the video, you can see how many people.
Marge,
I don't know if there's 200. But.
Marge, I want you to call back because we have a very, very bad phone line. We have a couple lines open for you. Please call back, and I promise we will take your call. It's staticky for some reason.
Yeah,
let's go to Sandy. Sandy, thank you for calling into the Vegas Take. How are you? Sandy's obviously doing very, very well. Let's go to Evan. Evan, thank you for calling into the Vegas Take. What's on your mind, Evan? Yvonne, I'm sorry. Yvonne.
So, I'm sorry, Chris, but I totally disagree with you. I am justifying the cop for doing what he did. I have a butt would be whooped, and I would back up the cop because he didn't comply. He's gonna that's how we raise them. You comply. You got to move out of the way. Let the cop do his job.
Okay, so he pepper sprayed him. Okay, so you're justifying that both the police. It wasn't just the one cop, by the way. There were two cops that were on top of him. One of them was punching him, and then they ended up shoving his face in. So you're saying that from this, even the spot, because I would tend to agree with Brian to the fact that pepper spray I think would have been appropriate, and then that was the end of it. Okay, but you're saying. Going above and beyond what he did was fine. You're saying it's perfectly fine. Because I completely disagree. But
no, I'm sorry. I raised my son to if there's the cops there and you're not complying, I'm sorry. Yeah. Whatever happens.
Yvonne,
but not only that,
whatever happens. Not only that, so if he got killed, then he would have. If your son would have got killed, then it would have been fine.
You got to let us comment. Yeah. Okay, hold on. JD, go ahead.
It wouldn't get to that point.
Not only that, Yvonne, you also raised your son to think that a cop would help him if he were lost or if he were in trouble, correct?
Exactly.
So you want your son to have the police officer in a positive light.
Exactly. So it's like if something's going down, something negative like that, something ugly like that, you have to move out of the way.
Here's a fact. Yvonne, I think you're going to agree with me on this one. Here's a fact, and here's why I come up with these conclusions. In most officer-involved shootings, and in most, not all, but in most circumstances where police officers are using deadly force or close to it, it's because people are not complying with the officers.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that 100% are lawful. It doesn't mean that every police officer does the right thing.
There's bad apples for every single profession.
Exactly. Where there's good, there's evil.
Exactly.
I mean, it is what it is.
You guys are you're all making a case for me that it happens in society and that there are police officers that don't do the right thing.
Yeah.
So is it possible that in this situation the police officers didn't do the right thing? Hey, don't take my word for it. There's going to be an investigation, okay, and we'll find out.
Let's take another phone call. Let's go to Marge. Marge, I know we had a bad phone line. Thank you again for calling back. So what do you think about this?
With the size of the crowd around him and the fact that this guy, I also heard or saw that he had his arm up and they wanted to put his arm behind him to arrest him as well.
Yeah, it certainly didn't look like he was doing the officers any favors. Yeah, he certainly looked like he was resisting.
They pepper sprayed him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he was resisting.
The other part is that with his arm up, I think they were afraid that he's going to grab a gun or something, and then that would have been a more dynamic situation, to say the least.
You did see the video? You saw the video?
Yes.
Okay, you saw how far away the kid was from the police officer where there
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, Chris.
Doesn't matter. He could have rushed him, you know.
Yeah, I guess he could have, yeah. He could have.
Yeah.
The kid was 5'10", 150 pounds, soaking wet. The officer was 6'3", about 260.
He had 15-foot arms.
Yeah, it's the same argument as made, by the way. It's the same argument as in Tulsa, too, when the police officers were 25 feet away.
Marge, I'm sure you'll
gunned down the guy.
I understand what Chris is saying, but Marge, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. I don't care if this was a 60-pound kid or a 360-pound kid. You have to comply with police officers, period.
Right.
Yes.
And they're trying to. I mean, they've got a very volatile situation.
Yep.
Why they had 2 or 3 police officers?
That's a good point, Marge.
Is another question.
You guys are ignoring
that's a good question,
things,
Marge. Good to hear from you.
He pepper sprayed the kid. It's not like the kid was, the kid was charging at the officer.
I don't think that it's so much a race thing as far as the disrespect for police officers. I think it's an age thing. I think that millennials on down have a much lower amount of respect for police officers than any other age group or generation.
That's fair. I would say that's fair.
We have the phone lines are absolutely clogged right now, so I'm going to try to get to as many as possible. I think I know this guy that's on the line with us. I believe he's a friend of the show. I think his name is Mike Hammer. Somebody told me he's a magician. Mike, what's going on?
What's up, Mikey?
Hilarious. Hilarious.
No collusion.
What's going on with what's that?
No collusion.
Mike, what do you think about this? Don't listen.
First of all, who is your crazy co-host today, Brian Shapiro? Who is that guy?
Apparently, he doesn't breathe oxygen because I don't think he's taken a deep breath in the last hour.
Congratulations on the new Alex Jones radio host.
Hammer, somebody's got to fill the void, man. So I'm going to be going down that road.
Alex Jones.
I'll be like the left wing Alex Jones.
Mike, which side do you take on this?
Well, I just wanted to say that a couple of your callers actually had some really good suggestions about this. First of all, Brian, you have said before about, I mean, I get, complying with the officers, and it works a majority of the time, but there have been a lot of instances.
I never said that it's 100% that if you comply, nothing is going to happen. But what I will tell you is statistics back me on this. If you comply, you have a much better chance of survival and a much better chance of not happening to what happened to this 15-year-old.
Oh, I would say that for sure. But I do know, like, in a lot of parts, certain inner cities, I do know within the black culture, there have been incidents.
No question, and I'm not going to argue that.
Fear, you know what I'm saying?
I don't disagree, and I'm not going to argue that.
But that being said, this situation did not look like one of fear at all. This wasn't, those are situations where it's usually a person being arrested, and other people might not be around to witness this or whatnot. But this wasn't fear. This seems like a smart aleck kid, basically, not complying. I mean, that's what it seemed like to me. There was no reason for him to even be part of this situation. But the officer that actually hit him, he's actually very skilled. Because I was watching the way – are you talking about the one that was on top of him that hit him in the head?
Yes,
right, with the
yes, correct.
Okay. First of all, he was pushing his head down. It didn't look like he was intentionally trying to smash his head into the ground. And the reason I say that, he was very controlled because he actually hit him with an open palm. It's a palm strike as opposed to – it's actually an MMA thing. Yeah. Palm strike as opposed to a punch. And he stopped, like he hit him to see if the force of his head, if he would stop and comply. Yeah. And then you saw where he hesitated and thought to hit him again, and he didn't. So I thought it was a very controlled situation. It wasn't like an officer that freaked out. But
we only have like a minute and a half here, and then we go to break. Sure. Mike, you said a lot of things there. I tend to agree with you on most of what you said. I think me and Chris seem to be on completely different ends of the spectrum. All I'm trying to say is I do believe that you could make a case for police brutality, but we need to find out a little bit more. There's going to be body camera evidence, and LeBron James putting out a tweet without knowing all the facts, just like in Ferguson when Barack Obama flew people out to that scumbag.
You don't want to say make a case for police brutality. Make a case for self-defense by the police
officers. The problem with what LeBron James did
there's no justification.
LeBron James made it seem like he was targeting a African-American young boy.
And we don't know that to be the case.
And that is clearly not the case.
Well, I'll tell you what I do. I do target magicians in this town, and I do go to their shows, and Mike Hammer does a fine show. I've seen his show about 800 times.
Well, I want to thank both Brian, JD, and Alex Jones.
and Hammer, I want to thank you for your in-depth MMA analysis of this episode. That was pretty cool. Breaking it down, blow by blow.
Hey,
Mr. Hammer,
Mike, we actually need an MMA guy.
Yeah, we do.
All I care about is MMA, and I think that Brian is on steroids.
I wish I was, my friend, but thanks.
He does hit it long off the tee.
Thanks, Mike.
He does kill the ball.
All right, so we have a lot of callers on hold, and I promise you I will get to all of them on the other side of the break. We've got Wilfrey, we've got Bobby, Charles, Chuck, Fernando. I will give you ample time, and I will get to every single one of your calls when we come back. I promise you that. So please wait on hold. We have one phone line open, by the way, if you want to be a part of this discussion. The number to call again, 257-5396. Again, that number to call, 257-5396. I want to hear all of your opinions, hear them out. Who's right, who's wrong? Do you agree with Chris? Do you agree with myself and JD? Give us a call, 257-5396. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Chris Wayne in studio. Thank you all for waiting on hold. That was a very long break. A lot of advertisers making money off of our show. I guess that's a good thing. I don't know. But the number to call, by the way, if you want to be a part of the show.
Yeah, we definitely we do some things on the show lucrative-wise.
Yes, 257-5396, the number to call, 257-5396. We want to get Chris Wynn red in the face, so callers doing a good job of that. We're talking about it with all seriousness. This Florida deputy placed on restricted duty, 15-year-old kid, pepper sprayed, and then his face planted on the pavement, punched in the face, open palm, according to Mike Hammer, who's an MMA professional. But I'm one of those people that believes that you have to comply with a police officer. Chris Wynn is one of those people that thinks that this is excessive and he's not putting responsibility on the 15-year-old, and that's fine.
I didn't say you had to comply with police officers.
I didn't say you didn't. I understand, but we're just talking about this specific circumstance. 257-5396. We got a lot of people on hold. Charles, Fernando, Randall. We'll get to all of you. Let's start with Wilfrey. Wilfrey, thank you for calling in and waiting on hold. How are you?
Well, I'm incredible, and thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Brian. I'm going to bring you to Central, but before I do, I just want to thank you for not having an erectile dysfunction commercial. Hell, they're on every damn station. I'm going to feel like
is that Dr. Orakaki? Is that who you're talking about?
I don't know. Every other station.
Let me tell you something, Wilfrey. Let me tell you something. If luckily I don't suffer from erectile dysfunction, at least not yet. If I did, the guy that I would want taking care of me, his name would be Dr. Orakaki.
All right, well, there you go. So, so here's what I want to do is I want to add some exterior criteria for you to consider.
Okay.
Four things. First of all, I think it's a 20 to 25 feet. If you let a knife get in between you in that distance, you're done for. If you don't believe me, just go watch the special trainings on knife defense or attack. The other thing is that I thought we were talking about abortion here for a minute, so let me make that clear that we all come from the same portal, gentlemen. On the one side of that portal is the mysteries of the universe. The other side is that I got to put up whatever comes out of there. Right now, it's $59,000 a year to put it in a sale. In my world, I'm going to put that person. I'm going to put them people in extreme positions. That's number two. Number three is this. I think you should be talking about the mob of 300 to 500 blacks who are gangsting downtown Chicago, and that's a hell of a moment no one wants to cover. And finally, and fourth, now this is going to bring you to the center, but I think it needs to be said. I think we're in denial, and this is purely a speculation. It appears to me that the blacks are not evolving.
Wait, the blacks? Well, hold on a second. Don't use that. I'm not a big fan of saying the blacks.
No,
let's call them African Americans.
You sound relatively intelligent and eloquent.
All right.
You got to work on that, Bob.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. If you want to do some antics. I think the African Americans, a good proportion, are not evolving as quickly as they should. and we're all in denial.
What do you mean by that? Be specific. What do you mean African Americans are not evolving? Please explain.
Well, I'm not sure. I think it's a bigger discussion, but in my world of assimilated values, I know damn well what respond to the request of an officer is.
There are plenty.
Yeah, not a road you want to go down if you want to generalize about African Americans in America not assimilating in society. Look, that's not a road you want to hoe.
What you could say is millennials, because I think millennials in general are not being educated properly on how to handle
Appreciate
police
the call,
officers, how to
Wilfrey.
respect them. But singling out African Americans is that's
okay.
That's beneath you, sir.
It is. I appreciate the call, but you lost me there when you called them blacks, and then you started to go off with it. They're not evolutionizing or whatever it is that he said.
What are you talking about? The 300-person mob in Chicago or something?
He was talking about a major mob in Chicago. I think it was a flash mob, though.
Let's go to Fernando. Fernando, thanks for calling into the Vegas Take. What's up?
Hey, guys. If you don't comply, you're only going to make it worse.
Correct.
That's a very valid point.
Worse. But I want to take you guys back to 1975, okay? My uncle was a police officer in Southern California, and he used to patrol the streets, and he would see a gang member. He would grab him, throw him in his car, take him to a warehouse, and beat him up, and then he would go on patrol and throw him on the street. Okay? So he did this about 2 or 3 times, and word got back. So they kidnapped my cousin from high school, and they killed him. True story.
That's horrible.
You can summarize that up by saying, look, there are officers that are not good police officers out there. Okay,
absolutely.
There's a very, 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 very small percentage that are bad cops.
I hate to make a contrast, a comparison to police officers and illegals, because I'm not saying that police officers all break the law. Obviously, if you're an illegal, you've already broken the law. But the way Donald Trump demonizes illegals and says these people, they're bad people, they're rapists, and I suppose some of them are good people, that's incorrect. I think the majority of illegals coming to this country are good people, and I certainly believe the majority of police officers are heroes, and they are good people.
Oh, yeah, and my uncle was brown, and the gang members were brown. My cousin was brown.
Mm-hmm.
So it really doesn't matter what color you are.
Right.
My cousin was 18.
I hear you, Fernando. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry that happened. That's terrible, Fernando. I get your point, and I'm sorry you had to go through that, Fernando. Let's take a few more calls on this one at 257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the show, 257-5396. Charles, you're next. Thank you for waiting patiently on hold. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
Good, Charles. What's on your mind?
Good. I was listening to your show, and I had some concerns with some of the things that you guys were saying about the black leadership and how they, specifically when you were going in talking about LeBron and how he probably doesn't have anything to say about it.
I can give you specific examples if you want me to clarify what I said.
Well, I prefer to just speak in more general terms. My concern is that it might give off the wrong impression, especially to other people who are listening. There are a lot. I'll just make 3 quick points. So the first thing is that there are a lot of black people and every day who are doing great things, and
nobody would disagree with that. No normal person would disagree with that. Yeah,
I didn't say you did.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure you agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
But I just want to make sure that that isn't overlooked.
Yeah.
Because
maybe not Wilfrey, who just called in. He might disagree with you, but
I'm almost certain he would definitely disagree.
I got weird really quick, didn't it?
Yeah. According to Wilfrey, all these African Americans, or as he likes to call them, blacks. Yeah. I'll send him his white cape through the mail. Anyway, okay, go ahead, Charles. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's one of the things that kind of brought that up. The second thing is that if there's an issue, and it doesn't matter which race it is, it's not necessarily up to some governing body, whether it's black leadership or white leadership, to have responsibility at that time. That situation was between that kid and those police officers. Now that kid was only 15 years old. He acted wrong. He made mistakes. Did he deserve to get kicked in the head? Probably not. But hey, it's unfortunate situations. I'm sure he learned from it, so on and so forth.
You know what, Charles? You just made a very good point there, because if he has good parents, he's probably going to get a lot of money, which I don't think he deserves. But if you mentioned learning from mistakes, I would hope that if he's ever in a situation like that again, he complies with a police officer, regardless of whether the police officers were wrong or not. If he's in that situation again, see, that's why I wish you talk about black leadership, and I talked about that. I wish somebody like an Al Sharpton or a Jesse Jackson would come out and say, this is horrible, this needs to be investigated, it looks like police brutality. But with that being said, when police officers tell you to do something, you need to do what they tell you to do. You'll never hear that from our African-Americans leadership. You don't, and to me that's a problem.
You absolutely do. You absolutely do.
From Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson?
Yeah, I would push back on you,
There's a lot of, but to my first point, there's a lot of other black leaders out there, and one of them, I'll be completely honest with you. Some people like to listen to Al Sharpton. Some people like to listen to Jesse Jackson. But if you're talking about a 15-year-old, he probably doesn't care two licks about who those people are. He's looking at other people. That's a generation ago. Maybe
LeBron James would never put out a tweet like that, and we've talked about LeBron. The reason why I bring up Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, they're always to the forefront, and they're always on television and radio when these types of things happen. That's why I bring up their names. Look, I have no doubt what you're saying, Charles, is true. Yes, of course there are African-Americans that are leaders out there that are saying what I'm saying. I have no doubt about that. But the point I'm trying to make is somebody like a LeBron James, when he comes out there and he just automatically assumes that there's no responsibility on the other side, I think that's wrong.
No, see, you're confusing, the reaction from celebrities like LeBron James and others, the reaction after an extreme case takes place, like this, right, where a kid gets basically beat up, okay? They're reacting from that. They are not going out there. LeBron James isn't going out there and saying, hey, police officers don't listen to him, don't comply with their orders. That's not what he's doing. He is reacting to an extreme situation like this that took place. And in other cases as well, too. The case where the gentleman, the guy was standing by the SUV in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right, and he got gunned down by the officers, and the female officer, I believe, got charged, right, and I believe she went to prison or went to jail.
Yes.
The point being is that a lot of these celebrities, you guys, are reacting to what happens. They're not going out there and proponents of any violence against police officers. They're not saying that you shouldn't listen to police. They are reacting. And so I think you're getting that confused as to, what their responsibilities are. And then you're saying, they all should come out and say, you should listen to the police officers every day.
When you are LeBron James, you have a responsibility to wait until the facts are brought forth.
Yeah,
he doesn't have all the facts.
Well, everybody does, not just LeBron James. All of us.
You are correct.
And a visceral reaction by a guy like him with the following that he has can be literally dangerous to the United States.
I wish I had 1 billion followers. I don't. LeBron James basically does. 257-5396 is the number to call. 702-257-5396. Randall, you've been waiting patiently on hold. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Doing good, Randall. What's on your mind?
Hey, I was just weighing in, and that last conversation was fantastic. I'm always trying to find the middle ground of everything. I'm independent. I don't, love or hate the Democrats. I don't love or hate Republicans, or not that really has anything to tie into this. But in a lot of situations, a lot of people just tend to take one side without really looking at all of the evidence. I watched the video. And I think both sides have a point here.
Can I ask you a question, Randall? Because I'm trying not to say that I'm God's gift to this issue, but I'm trying to take both sides. I started off the segment last hour, said, look, it appears as though at least one officer used excessive force. It appears as though one officer will probably lose his job. I don't know if there'll be criminal charges. There will be a lawsuit. But on the other side, I'm also saying this teenager clearly did not comply. I'm trying to take both sides of this. At least I'm trying to make that attempt.
And Randall, let me point something out real quickly. It's not necessarily a Republican. This is what's kind of perplexing to me. Why are we talking Republican and Democrat? This has nothing to do with politics.
Right.
Okay? This has nothing to do with Democrat. It's more about there's the people that are calling in and saying and either justifying what the police officers did or trying to make a case as to why the police officers aren't wrong.
Right.
They're basically they're pro law enforcement, right? And then there's there's minorities that are out there in the Twitter sphere and others who are on the side of the kids. So,
Randall, go ahead, finish your point.
Sir. Yes, sir. And I agree, and that's why I stated at the end that Republican or Democrat doesn't tie into that.
Yeah.
However, a lot of people will make that correlation with this argument,
which is wrong. Which is
right.
Why though?
They'll let their political affiliation make the decision for them without applying their own logic. I totally agree.
Yeah, that's completely idiotic. Yep.
Yes, and I'd like to say, Brian, I heard you. I understand that you're trying to make both sides of this argument, which is important, which is why I wanted to follow up on that, because I don't think you were fully heard. I think a lot of people are taking one side to this, including some of your phone callers, except for the last one. And I watched the video, And I agree. Like, I mean, the kid, I watched it, and the kid was there. He was up in the business of what was going on. He should have stepped back. But I also agree that, look, you're a police officer. This is happening. How do you deal with that? And I don't think he needed to do everything. And as far as the open palm thing, I watched it. It was a closed fist, clearly.
Well, closed fist or open palm, I think we all could agree it was probably unnecessary. The kid was already on the ground. Get the handcuffs on him. I thought that pepper spray would have been enough, and then if the kid see, this is the body camera footage we need to see, right? After the pepper spray, in all aspects and all the camera footage, we don't know exactly what happens after the camera spray. Like literally, I'm talking about.
You can see the kid falling down though,
right?
And going down.
Okay, but here's the thing: did they try to arrest him? Did they try to get his hands behind his back? We need all the evidence to be put forth. We don't know. It certainly looks like excessive force, but what we never hear from usually with many leaders in the African community is complying with police officers. It's not 100% that nothing's going to happen. This kid, I don't care if he's 15 or 35, when somebody tells you to back off, you don't get in a police officer's grill, especially when there's arresting him.
Let's not forget that police officers come.
You guys saw the video.
Okay, let's not forget the police officers come in all colors. The majority are not all coming. They're not Caucasian.
And by the way,
but they were Caucasian.
Everybody, it's not just white police officers that are bad cops. Okay, right. The small, very small percentage. There's even some that are.
Go ahead, Randall.
I'd also like to say one more thing. I teach in Las Vegas. I'm a fifth grade elementary school teacher, and what we know about like how these kids, and I know that my kids, my students, don't think well of cops. And my opinion and what I tell them is, look, they are there to help you. If you don't allow them to help you, you're not part of the solution. You're part of the problem. And the other issue with that is their parents have a long history of relationship with police officers.
There you go, Randall. That's 100%. Randall, that's a great point, and I want to kind of jump on that and alliterate that, okay? Because we talk about celebrities all the time. People have talked about celebrities even have come out and said that are minorities that there is a blanket, it goes back for years. The relationship with the black community, with the minorities, and law enforcement. So you need to highlight that, okay? Because that's something that needs to be pointed out. And even one celebrity went on yesterday and was talking about how, look, there are times where I'm not doing anything wrong in my car, and I'll pull over if there's a cop behind me because I don't even want to have a confrontation. I don't even want to have the interaction. That is a mentality that exists in this country that needs to be highlighted.
Let me give you an example of something that I went through. And look, I'm not an African American, but I have plenty of friends that I've seen in my own eyes that have been pulled over for no reason because of the color of their skin. Now, I'm not saying every officer does that. The majority of them don't. Let me give you an example of something that I went through personally that was pretty embarrassing and demoralizing. First date. I mean, that was demoralizing for her, the fact that she went on a date with me. But anyway, that's another story.
Is that this car or your former car?
Let me get to the car because that's a part of this story. Okay, we went to a show, okay, separate cars. And then the date is going fantastic. Keep in mind, this is the first date. Perfect. Everything's going great. She's like, you want to go for sushi afterwards? I said, great. So I'm following her, and we're going for sushi. We're driving on Spring Mountain. I'm following her. Keep that in mind. I get pulled over by a cop. And I wasn't speeding. I had no idea what was going on. And she pulls over, too, right in front of me, of course. Cop says, get out of the car. That's the first thing he says to me. Now, first of all, that's illegal, right? A cop should be saying license and registration and then say why he pulled you over. That's the law, right? But I'm going to listen to the officer. He doesn't answer me. I say, officer, what did I do? He doesn't answer me. So what am I going to do? Am I going to stay in the car?
Well, it's not illegal if he asks you to get out of the car. It could be,
he asked me to get out of the car.
So cause that you might be dangerous.
Well, I'll get to that. So I get out of the car. Clearly, I'm not dangerous. I get out of the car. He slams me against my car, and he puts handcuffs on me. Again, I still don't know what's going on. Now, if I'm, not in control of myself, I resist. I didn't resist. He puts handcuffs on me. At that point, I'm livid. And I probably said some things to him I shouldn't have said, but I was pissed off. Okay, the date gets out of the car. The police officer says to me, who's this? And I said, she's my date. He says, get back in the car and get out of here. This is a stolen vehicle. He says that to her. Okay, I said, officer, in expletives, I said, why don't you grab my license? This is my car. So 5 minutes go by. He grabs my driver's license. And I'm flipping out because my date has already left. And I'm like, oh, thanks a lot, buddy. So the date's already gone. She is long gone, okay? Keep in mind, he slams me against my car. It didn't feel very good, okay?
Right.
He uncuffs me, He has 2 rookie officers with him. So this is a veteran officer, I guess, I'm assuming, who was with 2 officers that were, I guess, rookies. So the rookie officer comes up to me. He's like, yeah, we're just training. Sorry if he's being a hard ass. We're in training right now. So the guy, the hard ass, comes back up to me, uncuffs me, said, your license plate was 1 number off from what we believe to be a stolen vehicle and a Hyundai Elantra. I said, excuse me, why didn't you just tell me that from the beginning? I would have given you my driver's license. Why did you do that? I said, look,
why would they tell you that? The reasoning behind it is because they thought your car was stolen.
Yeah, but still though.
That was the reasoning behind it.
Still though. So the guy's like, look, I'll call your date if you want. So he calls her and he's like, look, your boyfriend or whatever he uses, he's not a criminal. Okay, we made a mistake. So I'm thinking, all right, well at least he did that. But but again, I bring this point up for a couple. And by the way, I never hung out with her again. I called her the next day. She's like, "Yeah, my friend said I shouldn't hang out with you anymore." I'm like, "Hey,
I can't believe she was more attracted to you because you just seem like the dangerous kind.
Yeah.
You seem like a wild child, right, JD?"
She was the one that got away. But anyway, the point I bring this up for a reason. Somebody who loses their cool, and you get slammed against a vehicle. Keep that in mind. I was slammed against the vehicle before I was handcuffed. Okay, there are some people that would lose their cool and fight back. Now, what would have happened if I pushed the officer back? What would have happened if I resisted? I would have gone to jail.
But your own rationale, Shap, with respect to this young black kid down in Florida, if you use that same reasoning yourself, then you would have just done what? You would have just stood back and
I would have gotten out of the area.
Right?
Yes,
I would have been quiet.
I would have
because obviously it was mistaken identity and a mistake made by the police officers. But they are under the mental impression that your car was stolen and that you were a criminal that stole the car. So that's kind of the perspective they're coming from.
You ask for somebody's driver's license. That's the first thing you should do. Ask for identification. They didn't do that. But again,
that's
the point
all procedure stuff.
But again, the point I'm trying to make is that when if this 15, and we're going to end it here, when this 15-year-old kid and many of the people around him, when the officers say, get out of the area, step back, regardless of whether the officers broke the law or not, you need to comply. You need to do what officers tell you to do. I don't care if you're 15 or 35. Parents need to teach that young man and young men like that. When an officer tells you to do something, do it. Don't escalate a situation. Put your hands up when they tell you to put your hands up. Get out of the area when they tell you to get out of the area.
You have a very small tunnel vision of what you expect.
No, it's not.
Yes, yeah,
comply
you absolutely
to police
do.
officers.
When you're saying no, because you're saying when they do, even if they do something illegal and like it's not. That's not
when the officers
that's not
told
the
them
same
when the officers
viewpoint
that a
15-year-old kid's going to have
when the officers
what you are.
When the officers told those kids to back up and when the officers told those kids to get out of the area, no laws had been broken. They made 2 legal arrests, and many of those kids did not comply.
They made one. Right, they had a kid on the ground.
There were 2 people that were involved.
And the other kid was picking up the guy's cell phone. Right, if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't.
No, listen,
the kid that.
I'm going to tell you that there were 2 kids involved in the fight. There were 2 arrests being made, not one. There were 2 arrests being made. One of those kids' cell phone dropped out of his pocket, and then you're right. Yes, the kid picked up the cell phone. Okay. But what I'm trying to tell you is that, no, it wasn't one arrest. There were 2 legal arrests that were being made. But anyway, we will continue this conversation. It's a good, heated debate. I always like it when Chris Wynn gets fired up. I do enjoy that. It's a good debate, and we will probably continue a little bit of this conversation tomorrow. But, boy, this is going to be fun coming up. Not only, I believe, is he a 9-time WSOP champion?
A lot of bracelets.
Yeah, he's got a lot of World Series of Poker bracelets, but as good of a poker player as Danny Negreanu is, he is
wired in.
Just as good when it comes to his knowledge of the Vegas Golden Knights and the NHL. So I know Daniel had a bad beat yesterday because he put a little bit of money on the Golden Knights to win in 6 games, and the game went into overtime, and San Jose Sharks end up scoring a goal, and now we are going to Game 7. So where do we stand now? Are the Knights going to win Game 7? We'll get JD's thoughts on the game last night, which we both went to, and we'll get Chris's thoughts on the game and who's going to win tomorrow. We'll get Danny Negreanu's pick on the game tomorrow, and we will pick his brain on what happened yesterday and what will happen tomorrow. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be joined by WSOP world champion, poker player, and the hockey knowledge is endless, Danny Negreanu. Coming up next, you're listening to the Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN.